Dort. This is Z Dort, and I'm down to dunk. This is Z Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
I'm Josh Giddey, and I'm down to dunk.
Hey, this is Kenny Hustle, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Darius Baisley, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Mike Muscala, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Poku, and I'm down to dunk.
I love cereal. Captain Crunch, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Cracklin' Oats brand.
Oh, I can have these. I'm gonna share with my team, but I'm gonna hog most of it.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht, part of the Athletic Podcast Network. Go to theathletic.com/down to dunk. Get the Athletic for $1 a month for 6 months. It's a great deal. It's a great time. You can see all kinds of things. Mock drafts coming at you quick. The draft lottery is like, what's it, like 3 months away? Gotta be ready. Gotta be prepared. With me today, as always, is Alex Spears. Alex, what's up?
What's up, Andrew? Andrew, you know what week it is? You know what comes out this Friday?
What?
Bro. You're not going to be diving into Elden Ring this Friday?
Elden Ring?
Elden Ring, my dude.
Is it like a forest game?
There is some forest in the game. It's a video game, and it currently has a 97 on Metacritic. It just came out. It's actually coming out like on Thursday night, but
like Lord of the Rings style.
That's is close,
it really
close-ish? Yeah,
nice.
I'm very excited. My wife is on a beach trip this weekend with her friends, and so I have like 72 hours of just
you get to
Elden
play.
Ring.
You get to play Elden Lion for all the weekend.
Elden Lion, yeah.
Oh, cool. Let's see. Oh, you want to start off with a question from the chat from Tyler Carroll, the draft lottery guru?
Oh, the numbers man. What does the numbers man say?
Numbers man wants to know, how many players in this draft have a higher ceiling than SGA? I think we've answered this question before, maybe.
That's so tough because you obviously never would have said that about SGA coming into his own draft. That's why he went whatever he went, 11th or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to say. I mean, if people think it's an average draft, there'll probably be like two guys that end up being better than SGA. That would be my guess. No idea who they'll be.
I mean, as of today, I would maybe say Chet. And then it gets dicey real fast, honestly, on guys that I think would be better than him.
Yeah, I mean, take your pick. I just like one. I haven't dove in yet, other than like listening to Sam Vecini and listening to some of the other draft guys I like.
Yeah,
but I haven't started like watching the highlight mixtapes because I know that I have a bias against Banchero. In my head, I just don't like him for some reason, but I like can't really base it on anything because all the podcasts I listen to still really like him and have him ranked highly.
Yeah.
But there's just something about, I've watched a few of his games. There's just something about it that is rubbing me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. I need to figure out that.
Yeah. I think also with like Jabari, he can do like the one dribble into a jumper. He can do the jab step into the jumper, but he's not a guy that's going to be like that. You can just he can have the ball all the time. So
which is good.
It'd be great for OKC.
Yeah.
As far as like a higher ceiling, though, it's hard for me to say he has a higher ceiling because SGA could potentially be a guy that just has the ball in the fourth quarter of a playoff game. You know,
for sure.
I don't know that Jabari could be that guy. Paolo could, at his highest ceiling, be that guy.
Yeah.
Can he get there is a giant question mark. You know,
that's
Chet could be that as well, but could he get there is also a giant question mark.
That's one of the things that's so interesting about thinking about these Thunder players because, we've been having these conversations, Josh, Giddey, and SGA have not been good on the court together so far. Fine. I think their two-man net rating is like -10. Who cares? Like, he's going to come back. We're going to get to see it more. But we're having those conversations because we're thinking of these two guys as like the best two guys on the team.
Right.
If you throw a third guy into that, who's like on their level. Now you just have all these other new issues. They're obviously great issues to have.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. Like we're thinking about it so narrowly in terms of like, how do we fit these two guys together? You throw one more guy into it, and it's, they're going to probably look drastically different than they've looked on the Thunder team thus far in terms of their role and how they play.
That's why I've been so against like cutting bait on anybody this year, even Dort.
Except Baze. You have to acknowledge that we did kind of cut bait.
Oh, I wouldn't even say his name for like 3 weeks.
So I think that counts.
Yeah, no, I'll count that. If you're terrible for a while, yeah, we'll count that. But good players that we don't know how they fit, which is really just Shea, Gideon, Dort. Like that's the list right now.
Yeah.
And if we just don't know if they got Jabari, I think it could change everything. If things didn't go right and they got Jalen Duren, well, maybe Dort doesn't work with a Jalen Duren team,
Yeah.
With those other two. Maybe you have to have shooting. ESPN put out a mock draft today that had the Thunder picking 6th and taking Duren. And, I don't think, that's probably one of the worst case scenarios for OKC. And I still kind of like Duren. So I don't know. It will be interesting. If they get a chance to get Jabari or Chet, then I think you don't have to worry as much about Dort because both those guys can shoot it from deep. So it's a conundrum, certainly. But as far as guys that have a higher ceiling than Shea, I think it's probably Chet. Maybe only.
Yeah, like going into the draft. There will probably be someone
As
else who
today.
pops and has a great career. But
Without a doubt. It could be Shaedon Sharp. It could be Jaden Knight.
yeah.
It could be AJ Griffin. Like one of those guys.
It could be Patrick Baldwin Jr.
It feels like it's not, but maybe it is.
Man, did you read the update on him? I think it was either in that big board or it was another big board where they were basically saying like, he missed his whole senior year of high school with this ankle injury.
Yeah.
This ankle injury has kept him out of a lot of games already in his freshman year. And you just start wondering, like, is this guy really going to fall? Like the way that Boston fell last year.
Yeah.
Where everyone was thinking BJ Boston going into the year was like top 5. Then it was like, okay, he's probably a lottery pick. And it's like, well, he's going to get taken in the first round. And then he ends up going in the second round.
Yep.
At that point, like, who cares? Like, obviously, you just draft Patrick Baldwin Jr. and see what happens. But
take him 30, yeah.
Yeah, but that was kind of interesting to me because I kind of forgot about the injury component and was only focusing on the fact that he's shooting like 28% or whatever.
Yeah, he profiles as a player that you would want, a big shooting wing. And those are the kind of guys that you would want for specifically this Thunder team. So, yeah, a lot of people feel like this is not only not a great draft at the top, but a kind of a shallow draft. And,
worst of both worlds.
It's the worst, the worst of everything. However, there's still guys that will be good. The 2013 draft was one of the worst drafts, but there's still guys that popped.
Yeah.
And these are the hardest drafts for teams.
This already feels better than 2013 because remember back then, the assumption was Nerlens Noel was going first.
Oh, I remember.
And the fact that it really felt like unanimous. Like going into that draft, I really thought like Noel's going first, and then we can talk about who's next.
That's when Bill Simmons was still talking us into who we should draft.
Yeah. And then for him to go 6th, like it's not going to be that kind of draft. Like Chet, Jabari, Paolo, Jaden Ivey, like one of these guys is going first. Yeah. I cannot imagine a scenario now. Of course, they could get injured, which I think is what happened. Yeah, Noel tore his ACL. Maybe something like that'll happen that one of these guys fall, but at least it feels like the guys at the top are pretty well agreed upon. Whereas that year, Anthony Bennett went number 1. So it
was really bad. Yeah. And even in that draft, the Thunder did well, which should be a little encouraging because they got Steven Adams at 12 and obviously like the Giannis one is like everybody messed up, It's where we're at with that. Like everybody messed up. And then they also took Andre Robertson. So they got 2 players that were good pros. And obviously they missed on Rudy Gobert in that draft too. They missed twice on what could have been just like two very, very great players. One maybe one of the best 10 players of all time, but they still hit on guys that can play, because other players in this draft like Lucas Nogueira and Shane Larkin, Shabazz Muhammad, and Trey Burke at 9, Ben McLemore at 7. I mean, there were just some really bad ones. Tony Snell at 20, which is fine, but Sergei Karasev went 19. Anybody heard from him in a while? I mean, there's just a lot of just holes in that draft, and I think this draft could be similar, where you have to find the right guys.
One of our Slam and Jam guests, Trill Bro Dude, he just did a new pod just about that draft. He started a new series called the Resloppables, where he goes back and looks at a draft, but he looked at that one in particular, which was just a very funny draft.
Yeah,
at the time, and in retrospect, that was the year that Jalen and Bill Simmons did like the interviews.
Yes, and
like Bill Simmons was sold on CJ McCollum solely based on his interview.
Yeah,
it ended up being kind of funny, and did not like Ben McLemore, was because that was the same draft, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Turns out, like, some of those interview things are real. You know, like some of the personality stuff is real, and I think part of the personalities of this particular rookie class for the Thunder is like they're all good dudes, well spoken, and I think that is like that's a part of the equation, right? I mean, it's hard to. I'm trying to think of like, has there ever been like a superstar that was just like could not put his words together? You know.
Well, did you see the Richard Jefferson thing about Gilbert Arenas? I thought that was really interesting, because I was not like into the NBA that deeply at that time, because I forget when that was. But he basically, like, Gilbert went on this rant saying that Richard Jefferson was like the 4th best player on that Arizona team.
Yeah,
it's insane that he got picked ahead of me. And then Richard Jefferson was like, here's what you need to understand about Gilbert Arenas. Like, he was insane. When we had this big interview with all of the potential draftees, and they were teaching or talking to us about like what we should do and like what we were looking forward to, Gilbert stood up and said, they asked him like, what's your dream? Like, how do you see this going? He said, I want to be an international pimp. And like got lit into by the guy who was leading this conversation. And there were just like all these red flags like in the lead up to the draft. And yeah, we haven't really had, like, at this point, these guys are so like well like trained in terms of like how to deal with the media. I mean, Bobby Marks like meets with a bunch of these guys every year and like teaches them how to respond to questions and all that. So they're all like so much more advanced just as like media personalities than they were back in like the early 2000s. Dude. When it really did feel like high schoolers. Like it was just guys coming out of high school being forced into this big media entertainment system. Whereas now all these guys like get it from the jump.
And it's even bigger now because of Twitter and YouTube and everything that we didn't have back then. You know, it's giant. It's like an uncontrollable mess that if you do misstep, like everyone will know within 4 minutes that you did.
For sure.
And you know, Josh is a really good example of what you're saying, because he is already incredibly media savvy. If you ask him about his numbers, which I'm sure as a 19-year-old, you'd be pretty pumped and jacked to be getting triple doubles and doing all these things like at MSG, like, and he's still just he just talks about winning. He's like, I just glad we got the win. The numbers are cool and everything. Like you could write right now. I could write you the script. Give me the questions that the guys are going to give, and I can write you exactly what Josh is going to say, because like that's where he's at. Where he's just, if you ask him anything about the numbers, he's always going to say the numbers are cool and all, but I would rather have a win. You know, that's he's said that. I don't know how many times he said that this season. But
there's just so few guys left in the league who you're like actually worried about them personally anymore. Like someone like Anthony Edwards is like has a ton of personality, and you could imagine a person like giving those type of answers in the past being someone you'd be worried about. But like Anthony Edwards, like everyone loves him. He's like one of the coolest guys in the league, and he's backing up a lot of what he's saying, even though he's saying like some outlandish things like I'm going to be MVP next season. But like, there's just no one in this league that I really worry about anymore.
Well, let's talk about somebody that we do worry about, Zion Williamson.
Okay, Zion. Yeah.
Because he is one that I think if you put a mic in front of his face right now, I think the Pelicans might be a little bit worried. They're so worried, in fact, that they're not even promoting him as somebody for the ticket packages that they're sending out right now, which is wild. And I guess they just know he's not going to play. But it's become a really tense situation, and his family is starting to leak out that he just doesn't want to play in New Orleans anymore. And so it will need to be a trade, because he's going to sign this deal. Like, he's going to sign this max this summer, right?
And not just because it helps him lock in money, but also, like, if you're the Pelicans, him on an expiring qualifying offer doesn't help you in terms of the trade market, because one, it's a really low number, and it's an expiring contract. Like, it helps the Pelicans too for him to sign this deal if they do end up moving him at some point.
Yeah. So he's gonna sign this deal, and then I can't remember how long it is till he's trade eligible. But this is like January of next year. But once he becomes trade eligible, I mean, obviously he wants to be a Knick, right? I think everything is tied to him being a Knick at some point. However, there are teams out there that have a ton of assets right now that you could spend. Like, this is the kind of player that, if he gets healthy, that you would expend a lot of assets on. And would this be a kind of player that you would want to spend a ton of draft capital on?
Yeah. It's tough because you don't know. One, New Orleans, where they are right now, doesn't feel like, if they and obviously this could end up with Zion getting healthy, coming back to New Orleans. Like, maybe this all ends up just being like a bad period in his early career.
You could.
But if they do get to the point where they are trading him, you wonder if New Orleans would actually not want a picks-based package, because they just
got a ton of picks.
They got a ton of picks in the AD trade. They just traded for 30-year-old CJ McCollum. Now they could turn around and trade him away. But like, they seem to be a team that is actively trying to win, whether Zion's there or not. Yeah. Like, they could have taken this season as an opportunity to tank again and get another high pick to pair with Zion. They are not doing that. So even though OKC, as we all know, is like well positioned to be at the forefront of any future star trade involving picks, I just don't know if New Orleans is the type of team that wants that right now.
Yeah.
So from their perspective, I don't know if it's a great fit.
Yeah, they don't profile as a team that's trying to do this, certainly.
But on the flip side, this feels like, if this goes the way it keeps going, and he does end up leaving either in the first year of this extension or the second year, like, it's going to be one of the more explosive NBA stories in recent memory around this whole idea of like player empowerment era and like, what are we doing, like, to the small market teams and all that. And what's so interesting about this whole situation is, like, regardless of where you stand on everything, like, you can find evidence to support whatever narrative you want to support. Like, like saying that New Orleans did him wrong by having 3 different coaches and all these different vets coming in and out of the team and never really having a good, stable organization. Like, you can make that case. Like, I don't like David Griffin. Like, he hasn't made a lot of trades that got me super excited. But on the flip side, you can definitely blame Zion, as a lot of his teammates have been doing recently. So there's like something for everyone here, which is why this is going to be like such a huge story. Never mind the fact he's like number 1 pick and everything. But if you're the league, what would be a better resolution to this than him getting traded to another small market? Because then it kind of just takes everything. It takes that whole conversation and it just like cuts its legs out from under it.
Yeah, if it's like, well, to New York or whatever, it's just like, here we go again.
Yeah, is the league ruined? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
If he does get traded to a team like Oklahoma City, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, we'll see how this works out. Now, immediately, everyone's going to think, well, this isn't going to work out. Zion's going to want to leave Oklahoma City. But he's going to be going to a team that we think is a much better organization than New Orleans in this scenario. And who knows? What if it worked out and then everyone could be happy? Listen, to get a player like Zion, and I understand why people are freaked out about Zion mostly because of the injuries. Like same thing happened to Joel Embiid. Like we saw the same thing happen with Kevin Durant.
Evan, yeah. This
That
specific
same
injury.
Yeah, this specific injury happening in this specific way where at some point it's like it's not healing, and then the question is like, is he going to get a second surgery? That part of it honestly just doesn't, like, it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. The fact that he has had these injuries, just because we've seen star players and we've seen heavy star players. Joel Embiid broke his foot, one of the biggest guys in the league, and came back and was able to play. So like that part of it, you obviously have to consider it, but it's not going to stop me.
Yeah. Okay. Let me give you a scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
Sam Presti comes to you and he says, "Hey, Alex, I've decided I'm trading for Zion Williamson."
Oh, hi, Sam.
And hello, Alex. I want you to create the trade for me. New Orleans is demanding Josh Giddey or Shea. And I need you to choose because I just can't choose. They're both my babies. I can't do it. I can't choose. You have to choose which one goes. All the other things have been agreed to in principle. We've got picks going to them. We've got Trey Mann, and we've got something else going to them. But the only thing I can't decide is Josh Giddey or Shea.
This is where, like, living in the bubble of Oklahoma City Thunder fandom just kind of like skews the way you think, because I'm listening to that and I'm like, Shea is worth more in the trade market right now than Zion is.
Yeah.
So why am I sending picks plus Shea in this scenario? But a year ago, you obviously wouldn't say that, even as well as Shea was playing at that time.
Yeah.
Like Zion at that time, making the All-Star game in his second season, being one of the most efficient big men we've seen in recent memory. Like if Bill Simmons still did his his trade rankings,
yeah,
like he would be in the top 5 last year at this time.
Sure.
So it's very hard for me to objectively do that, and frankly, I only do that if it's just purely a pick steal. Like I'm not there yet. As much as I just said, like the injuries aren't stopping me. Zion is a great player.
I want you to answer the question though. But I'm saying Sam is going to make the deal.
I would rather give like 5+ first rounders than give up Giddey or Shea in a Zion.
You have to give up one. But you have to give up one.
I have to give up one.
Yeah, and he's Sam says, you know what, we've got
okay,
and Zion Williamson is going to be a superstar. He will be a top 5 player in this league.
Okay.
We don't have confidence that Josh or Shea will be a top 5 player in this league, and that's why we're doing the deal.
Okay.
But we want to pair him with one of them, and we can't decide which one.
Here's what I would do. I would actually trade Giddey.
Okay.
And the reason would be, when did we see Zion at his absolute peak? It was point Zion. It was when he had the ball at the top of the key, spread the floor, let him just crash to the rim. Mm-hmm. You pair him with Shea, who can do that exact thing. And then at that point, you're just surrounding them with shooters, and it seems like pretty easy, at least offensively. Now, defensively, Mark's got to work some magic there.
Darius has got some work to do.
Darius is going to have a big load on his shoulders. He needs to up that block percentage.
Darius and Dort have some work to do.
Yeah. But yes, in that scenario, because obviously Zion can play off ball and he will probably be great playing off ball. But I loved the point Zion thing so much. I would want to emphasize that. And so putting him with Giddey, I just don't think the fit is as clean as it might be with Shea.
Yeah. And we get to fully unlock Mike Muscala in this situation too.
Yeah.
Just the fully unleashed Muscala.
It's really fun though, thinking about what a Zion trade would even look like.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, honestly, if you're New Orleans, you can't get off the phone with Oklahoma City and agree to a trade that doesn't include Josh or Shea. Like, you just can't do it.
Yeah, you can.
You can. And that's where I think that we have to look at teams that aren't looking for picks-based trades. Like, we have to be aware that it's possible that they do trade one of those two in the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think like around the league. I think, man, the Zion, whatever the Zion, if that ends up happening, it's going to be it's going to be a very unique situation for a team because they're going to have to give up not just a young player, but like a young player they feel really good about, who probably has all-star potential if they're not already like a fringe all-star.
Without a doubt.
And you're committing to Zion, who, yes, you at that point in this scenario that we're all making up, you would have him on a long-term contract. But as we've seen, he can just not play, as Ben Simmons has not done.
Yep.
And he could force a trade as soon as he got to the next place, and it wouldn't really matter.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm very interested to see how this turns out, because it could end up being just like a blip. As far like, again, if he went to a team like Oklahoma City, it would obviously be a huge blockbuster deal, but you just avoid all of the narrative around it. Whereas if he goes to any of these big markets, all of a sudden this becomes a much different story.
Yeah.
Because all of these deals that have been happening lately, like the only real deal where it was a small market team losing their star recently was Anthony Davis, right?
Yeah.
Because like I don't consider Houston a small market. I mean, Houston's like a top 5 city in the country. I don't consider like Brooklyn or Philly small markets. Like a lot of the star movement recently has been between big US markets.
Yeah.
So this would be very unique. Obviously, it's like doubling up on the Anthony Davis thing for New Orleans fans, which is terrible for them. But yeah, I would say I'm open to it. But now that you've told me one of those have to go, which obviously is true, but you go into it thinking, oh, my team is so perfect, we can just give all our picks away. I don't have to give up anyone I like.
I
It
know.
doesn't make it tougher.
I'd also love to see some Zion Poku photo shoots where
Thunder and lightning.
Thunder and lightning. Poku is 6 inches taller than Zion, but weighs 100 pounds less. Literally 100 pounds less.
You could probably do a shot where he's standing behind Zion and you can't see any of Poku's body, but just his head.
You see his neck and his head.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I would love those photo shoots.
I'd be very excited about that. And I feel like there's like some kind of like Zion Dort thing that we could have going on too.
It's so interesting how this all happened at this one time, and I don't think it was coordinated. I really do think these were just like, I don't know, maybe the JJ Redick thing was coordinated, but like I don't think CJ McCollum, like it doesn't really help anyone for him to say what he said.
Yeah.
So I don't think that was really deliberate. Obviously, what the team said in that email to season ticket holders, that was deliberate. They could have obviously included him.
For sure.
And then the JJ Redick thing was probably the most interesting because of what everyone's brought up. Like he's a Duke guy as well. He's a CAA guy as well.
Yeah.
He actually has said on his podcast that he didn't like the way he was handled when he left, that Griffin lied to him.
Yeah.
So like there's really no reason for him to help make New Orleans look good. And there's a lot of reasons for him to help Zion look good. And he did not do that, which made that one so interesting.
It also helps. This also helps JJ in a way too, where JJ is like being more transparent and is like saying stuff. Everybody heard it, and he's trying to get his ESPN career off the ground, and it's going quite well for him in ways like this. Certainly,
because we brought up like the Embiid, because Embiid obviously went through this at around the same time that Zion was going through it, although he hadn't even really played yet, and then Kevin Durant went through it. I remember that year with Kevin Durant, and it was miserable because we weren't getting updates. We were not getting updates. And when we would get updates, we would obviously only read the good parts of those updates and assume the best. And we're like, okay, so Kevin reevaluated in 6 weeks or whatever. Okay, so so he'll be back in January. Okay, that sounds great.
Yep.
And we started like mapping out the rest of the season. In both of those scenarios, though, with Embiid and Durant, like I can't remember one like story about a rift between those guys and the team in any way. The only time I remember that was with Cam Payne, who he also broke his foot, right?
Yeah.
And there was there were stories coming out saying like one side wants to get the surgery, one side doesn't. I believe it was the Thunder wanted him to get the surgery and Cam Payne didn't want to at the time.
Yeah.
So like that's the closest that I can remember, but obviously it's Cam Payne, not Zion.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that Kevin Durant year was bad.
It was bad. And what makes it even worse in hindsight is it's similar to this New Orleans year where like you look back and it's like, man, the Thunder really should have tanked.
Yeah, like what are we doing? And then we miss the playoffs just because of that AD shot.
One shot.
Oh, to bring it all back around.
I know, back to Nola. Yeah, it is wild. And I think that New Orleans will also regret not tanking and getting a higher pick in this draft too.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that you can only sell your fans on ideas like that for so long, and it feels like they've been in this constant churn of a rebuild. Like the only time they felt like they had a fully formed team was that Rajon Rondo year. Like it felt like, okay, maybe they're starting to put something together. Like when Boogie was there, it kind of felt like, oh, maybe something is starting to work here.
Yeah, but that's the problem is that they never stick to a plan.
Well, in their defense, like that one, they couldn't have stuck to because Boogie gets hurt and it's kind of all over really fast.
I understand that, but they always try to expedite things at the wrong time.
Yeah,
it's a cautionary tale for Thunder fans that want the Thunder to trade for guys now. You know, where it's like, let's go get a 28-year-old now to help us. You know, get these guys going. Well, you look at so many scenarios where that just doesn't work. And in New Orleans it didn't work when they tried to do it with AD. It hasn't worked with this crew either. You know, I mean, they have right now Valanciunas and CJ McCollum are 29 and 30.
Yeah.
Like you have Brandon Ingram, who's still 24 years old and developing, and you have a 27-year-old Devontae Graham that you just traded for, and you have a 21-year-old Zion. It's just a little bit like, what really is the plan? Like, what really are we doing? You know?
And short term, I think it's just Griffin trying to save his job. Like if he can make it to the play-in and they win a couple games and all of a sudden they're in the playoffs, like he's going to feel like his job is secure and he doesn't need to worry about it.
Well, it's another reason why ownership is so important.
Yeah.
Because the Thunder have a plan from top to bottom that goes throughout the entire team and everybody knows what it is and everybody is a part of it. Where with New Orleans, it seems like very disjointed.
Well, I was telling you,
roster.
There was a Down to Dunk listener who was DMing me asking about, you know, let's just say LeBron asks out this summer and they actually trade him. And at that point, if you're LA, maybe you're looking to trade Anthony Davis as well. And he was saying, would Anthony Davis be a good piece for the Thunder to go after right now? And there were a lot of reasons why I did not think that was a good idea. But one of them was that we still don't know what we have with this current Oklahoma City roster. Like it is still so early. Like when we talk about the SGA and Giddey pairing, people get all upset because it's like, you know, why are you even bringing this up now? And it's true. Like we have plenty of time. And yet we don't know if that will definitively work. Like we can say that right now. You can look at the stats. We don't know definitively that is going to work. And so making that all in move now when you don't actually know if the pieces you already have fit, like this is why the Suns, even though they kind of fell into it, like they created this nucleus of young guys that by the time they got Chris Paul, everyone kind of knew what their role was going to be on that team. And then you're adding the finishing piece and all of a sudden it works and everything makes sense. That, even though I'm not positive the Suns really had the foresight to see that coming that far away, like that makes more sense to me than saying, let's go all in right now. Now, it's different if it's like a Jaylen Brown or someone who's like 24. Then it's like, yeah, if you could somehow get him without giving up Shea or Giddey, of course you would. But for someone like Anthony Davis or an older star like a CJ McCollum who wouldn't really fit on the Thunder, like I much rather want to know what we have in place first before I'm adding that finishing piece to this. Yeah. Because what if you get Anthony Davis and you're just like the 6th seed and then he's turning 30 next March and now like what are you? Like are you really a contender and you're capped out? You can't add anything else at that point because you have his deal, Shea's deal, Dort's deal, whatever that's going to be. Like there's just so little flexibility there. So I'm fine with them like taking another year, adding another piece, seeing what we've got first before going all in with some move.
Yeah, and I think you can take comfort in what Sam did the first go around is that he did exactly that. Like he waited until he saw these guys together, and then tried to make a trade for a center, and should have made the first trade. Just stuck with it, stick through the turf toe, Sam. But but still made a deal later on that ended up working. I mean, it worked. It wasn't ideal, but it worked. All right, let's take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk about the tank race. And we're back after that quick break. How the Thunder currently sit at 4th in the tank race. They are 3 games behind Houston, who still somehow have all these guys. Even though we did the Wheel of Fandom for Houston and had a guest on, I still feel very confused about the Houston Rockets and what the heck is going on in Houston.
Yeah, I was me and Andrew, full disclosure, had a tough time like choosing someone to go after to get a guest for the Rockets.
Yeah.
And my obviously we know my background with the Houston Rockets and the Houston Rockets fan base.
Yeah.
But I just like watching this team and then going through Rockets Twitter, it's been very hard to find voices who like are angry about the way they're developing these guys. Like you see it from the fans, like you'll see it from Rocket fan accounts, but like in terms of like the big reporter guys in Houston, it's like overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I maybe they would perceive Thunder fans that exact same way. I feel like I'm more negative in general about like the Thunder, but like maybe they would see us the same way. Maybe that's just how it is when you're a young bad team. Like maybe all of Detroit is like that as well. And you need that negativity from the actual fans out there who are replying to these big account tweets. But yeah, it was just I wanted to find someone who would like really get into it. Like why are we playing Christian Wood?
Yeah.
I do not like watching him play. I don't think he's helping them. He's like the ultimate tank commander if you look back through his career. Like, what is the purpose of this right now? And I just felt like we were never able to really find it.
We didn't get there.
Yeah, which is fine. Maybe it all works out. Maybe they get Chet, Paolo, and next season it all works out. So that's why like I can't even be that down on it, because they are doing the thing that we want Oklahoma City to do, which is positioning themselves for a top pick.
Yep, they're doing
it. If they land a superstar, none of this is really going to matter.
And it's more pertinent that they do it now and quickly because of their pick situation.
Yes, if they end up with like the 6th pick in this draft, like if they're the one that falls in this draft, all of a sudden I'm starting to feel more confident about those future picks, because now I'm thinking, dude, Houston's going to bring back Dennis Schroeder. Like they're going to try to be like fine next year and aren't going to get a top pick next year. I don't know. I would be excited for those future picks if they fell in this draft, because I definitely think they need one more piece and they need to get rid of some of these vets.
Yeah.
Christian Wood is not going to be on the next good Rockets team.
No.
He's not.
No.
I promise.
Neither is Eric Gordon. Yeah. It's weird. It feels a little Timberwolvesy to me at this point. Where, I mean, it didn't matter that the Timberwolves got the number 1 pick 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why having a culture and having a plan and having organizational alignment is so important, because you can, even with lottery luck, find yourself in a bad situation because you don't know how to form a team. That's the picks and the talent, unless it's like a LeBron type talent, they don't have that yet. And there's not a LeBron type talent in this draft. There could be in the next draft, like just talent that doesn't matter, what you've done to your team. You're just going to win anyways. That's not the case with Jalen Green. It's not the case honestly with Josh or with Shea. You have to have some kind of organizational plan to get yourself there. Which from the outside, I just don't see it yet with Houston. And perhaps they develop it, but I just don't see it yet with them. Okay. Who are we afraid of in this tank race? I think 4th is the most likely spot that Thunder end up in. We have Indiana at 5th, and then the Kings. The freaking Kings are still they're 6th in the tank race. 6th.
Yeah, I'm less worried about them. Although we always say this, like they're trying to win. It's true. They're still trying
They
to
are.
win.
They just are really bad at it.
But I do think having Sabonis there, of course, I say that the team he was on, Indiana, is terrible this year too. So who cares? Okay, so now I'm just going to say that we have a 3-game lead on them. So I'm less worried about them this second.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm not worried about anyone else.
Yeah.
New Orleans,
No.
San Antonio, New York Knicks, Portland. I don't care about any of them
Portland's
anymore.
4.5 games now.
No, from what I can see, Portland is.
Oh, not Portland. I'm looking at New Orleans. I'm sorry.
6.5 games.
6.5 games.
Yeah, we're fine.
Isn't that
there.
wild?
It's very wild. So the only team I really am worried about this moment is Indiana, who we play in the next week.
Yep.
After we have, I think we play a good team, and then we play Indiana. But it's on this second night of a back-to-back.
It's second night of a back-to-back, and they have the weakest strength of schedule move for the rest of the season, I believe.
Yes, they do. So you feel a little bit better about that. So yeah, I would be shocked if we jump up, if we got to 3rd, and I would be shocked if we fell below 5th. So it's feeling like 4 or 5, and I would put it at like 80-20. That'll be 4 versus 5.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. There is a chance that Indy just stinks.
and there's a chance that Shea comes back and maybe like stuff starts clicking with Giddey, which would be awesome. That would be great. Like if that's why we're winning games at the end of the season, because all of a sudden that net rating with Giddey and SGA suddenly starts shooting up, like that's awesome for the future of this team. Because again, I'm not really concerned about us dropping that far.
Yeah, if that's why we're 5th, then so be it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like they're going to be playing Kenrich or Muscala or any of those guys a whole lot.
Are we going to get any Robert Woodard? I believe it's the 3rd, right? Robert Woodard,
yes.
The 3rd. Yeah.
I don't know, man. He was a guy that was projected as a first rounder. He went in the 2nd round to Sacramento and then disappeared. So I have no idea.
Yeah, he was brought up by Sam Vecini as a pre-draft guy, which is a term that's people are arguing about this week on Twitter. But just the idea of taking a guy who maybe should have stayed in school an extra year.
Yeah.
You take him like a year early thinking you're getting a discount on him. And then you kind of have to turn it around quick, though, because that he's behind developmentally. And so you're trying to turn this guy into something to make it all worth it. Did not happen with Robert. And I think it was his name, Robert.
It is. It just sounds. That's a funny one name for him,
Robert. But Ben Kreider, I believe that's how you say his last name. He watches all of the Blue games.
Yeah.
And I just happened to see that his description of what Robert Woodard's first game, he said, going through the motion, he's a blank 0 of 5 in his Blue debut. So that doesn't sound great for an early start. Meanwhile, DJ Wilson is just like destroying the G League every single game.
Yeah.
And you wonder if he would be the more likely guy to be brought up to get some minutes here at the end of the season.
Well, they just signed Olivier Sarr.
Oh, true.
To his 2-way. The Thunder roster's full. I do think that they'll probably open up spots here in the coming weeks, but still, it's like they've had chances to bring him up, and just haven't.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not weird because stat lines in the G League probably don't matter, but he is destroying the G League.
He's doing great. When the Raptors actually signed him for his 10-day and took him away from the Thunder, who were on their way to winning the tournament, and each of those guys, I think they won like $100K or something like that. They pulled him from the Thunder, and the Thunder lost basically because he wasn't there, which was just kind of crazy. I guess, obviously it benefited him to do it because he got more than $100K on his 10-day, but still, it's just wild.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who's going to be like not even the Moses Brown, more like the Charlie Brown of this campaign the rest of the season.
Yeah, who would you predict it is?
I mean, a lot of people in the chat very excited for Sar, for
Right.
Olivier.
Yeah. What's he done that people are excited about?
Oh no, like as like he's not good, like
In a tank way?
Yeah, in a tank way.
In a he's not good way?
Yeah, I mean, we saw with Diakite that like, I mean, it's probably just because he's not a good NBA player, but it's not like you can just plug in any center and all of a sudden this team is good. Like it kind of felt that way last year briefly, where it's like, wow, Moses Brown looks good and like the team's starting to play well. Then Shea gets hurt and then he's playing the rest of the season and they're terrible.
Right.
And we've talked about like if this team just had a center, like they would be amazing. Obviously that's not the case because Diakite played for us and we were still awful. And that'll probably be the same with Sar, but who knows? And maybe that's why they didn't go in on Yvertson, Andrew.
I mean, maybe.
Because he's actually getting like legit minutes for a playoff team.
He's putting up crazy stats too, and he gets to play a lot. I'm kind of glad because we don't have to talk about what he could be. You know?
Omer?
Yeah.
He's getting 14 minutes a game, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for a team like the Heat,
Are like the best team in the East. Yeah.
yeah, and all their guys are healthy right now. His last 2 games, 15 minutes, 14 minutes. Good
It's
for
great.
him.
It's great. Maybe we should just play Lindy Waters at center. Just see what happens.
Yeah. Let's maybe Lindy Waters will be the guy. Let him take 10 threes per game.
I'd like to see him play a lot. I think obviously he's somebody that's going to get cooked on defense, but
He is. But you know what I like about him? Not that like anyone in the league is going to respect Lindy Waters from the 3-point percentage yet.
Cool because he looks cool.
No,
He
but
does.
my idea for the rest of this year is not just to throw out any old guy and just roll it out and see how it goes.
Yeah.
I would like them to find like archetype guys who aren't good, the good versions of this archetype,
Sure.
but are at least playing that role on offense. Because I've seen enough defensively where if they play a bunch of guys who aren't good defense and their defense falls off the map, I'm not really worried long term. They've already proven it to me. Mark's now done it 2 seasons in a row.
Yeah.
With like questionable rosters, putting up a top 10-ish defense until SGA gets hurt. So Lindy Waters playing the role of a shooter on the court with SGA and Giddey.
It's great.
Yes, I would like to see that. You can find anyone else who can shoot. Like let's do a little bit of that. I don't think the team's going to be amazing, and I think the defense will fall off. But maybe we can get a little better idea of what SGA Giddey as a pairing could look together with surrounding talent that makes sense, even if they're not the good versions of that.
I do not disagree with that at all. Al, before we go, the they have 24 games left. They're over under 23 and a half.
Wow, so they could go over their under if they just win all their games. They could go hold on. If they gave all their wins away right now, they could still go over, is what you're saying, if they won all 24 games.
Wait, what?
Nothing. Just keep going.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Cool.
Cool.
Where are you at? They're 18 and 40 right now. They play 8 teams that are that'll be lottery teams of those 24.
I would go over. I just think if Shea is going to be healthy and back, he's good enough to get an extra 2-ish wins, 2 to 3 wins, and then you add that on top of this team that even without Shea was able to get, I think, like 3 or 4 wins mixed in there.
Yeah.
And so through 24 games, if they went like 7 and doing the math 17, that would be a bad record, and they would go over.
Yeah.
So that actually seems like a low end. Maybe I'm too high on this team. That's not good, but
You might be.
But still, 7 wins through 24 games with a healthy Shea, with healthy Giddey, with healthy Dort.
Yeah.
I think you're going to win some games.
Yeah. In the last stretch, they won 6 out of.
That was last year?
No, in
the
previous stretch this season, in their last 24 games.
Oh, okay.
They won 6 out of 24.
Yeah. But a lot of that was without Shea.
A lot of it was without Shea.
Now they are also seem to be pulling more levers than ever before.
It's time. It's like last year. It's lever time, baby.
It is.
Yeah, they have 5 back-to-backs in that stretch too, which is good. This Indy back-to-back is crucial.
Let's talk about the real story, Andrew. We haven't even brought it up yet. Chris Paul out for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
With his thumb.
Yeah.
Does this mean the Thunder might get the 29th pick instead of the 30th?
It actually
a chance.
Actually could.
Like they have such a gap already.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
They've been very good.
Just for them to fall back to the second, they would have to. They have basically 7 games.
Actually, they're not. We're going to get the 30th pick.
Yeah,
because who do you trust to get there that is close? Like, I don't think Golden State's going to do it.
It would have to be like Draymond comes back, is already 100% right out of the gate, All-Star break, and they go on a run.
Yeah, that would have to be it. I don't think Memphis will do it.
And then the other teams are too far behind. They're like,
and then Chicago, Miami next.
And they're 10.5 behind the Suns. So yeah,
ain't happening.
We're getting the 30th pick there.
Yep. That's fine.
Andrew, can I make a quick complaint? A quick Twitter complaint?
Sure.
This has been one of the worst weeks on Twitter in recent memory on NBA Twitter. Without games, it is just like some of the worst.
Oh, there's just like the argument
discourse
about stuff. Yeah.
About the dumbest stuff. And I just would like to plead with big accounts. If you have a big account, there's no reason why you need to quote retweet an account with 700 followers who has a dumb take.
Yeah.
Just to do like a questioning emoji or something. Like why? Well, I don't need to see the bad take.
Who's doing it? Who did you see that did it? This
is not the only example of this.
Yeah.
But there was a tweet from a guy who has like 700 followers. He's allowed to say whatever he wants. Who cares? He was saying that you could make an argument that Tony Parker is the best international player of all time, which admittedly, not a great take. Okay. Not a great take. But he's just a guy. He's just a guy. He's just throwing it out there into the ether.
Just a local French guy. Right?
If you're one of his friends and you want to dunk on him, go ahead. But if you're a big account, like, one, you don't need to punch down. But 2, I don't need to see it in my feed. I don't need to see this bad take. Huh?
Who was it that quote tweeted it?
I don't need to call people out because here's what I'll say, Andrew. I went to the tweet. This guy, again, he has like 700 followers. He's already up to 400 quote retweets. There were multiple blue check marks who had quote retweeted this guy to dunk on him.
Wow.
And I think that once the quote retweet number gets to half of the amount of followers a person has, we just delete the tweet and forget about it. Because the only people we should be dunking on are like blue check marks with millions of followers who have a dumb take. In that case, like, yeah, have at it. But when it's just like a guy, it's just a guy. Maybe he really likes Tony Parker. Who cares?
He met Tony Parker at a Subway one time or something. Like, who cares?
Why are we dunking on these people?
Yeah,
Twitter is just like so incentivized. This is something I'm really trying to do myself, which is to not quote retweet bad takes just to dunk on them.
Yeah,
because it's like the only thing people do on Twitter. It's like the only thing, and everyone thinks they're being super clever when they do it, and everyone's doing like the same joke about whatever the dumb thing the dumb person just said.
Yeah. And
meanwhile, they're the same people complaining about how there's not enough smart takes in NBA media. They're the ones sharing all the dumb takes with me. I'm not watching First Take. And meanwhile, these people are sharing First Take with me every single day, telling me how dumb this thing is they just said. Like, I wouldn't have ever seen that dumb take if you hadn't shared it. Why are we doing this? Why don't you just say smart things and ignore the dumb people that you don't think are smart?
Yeah, stop sharing perk stuff with me if you don't like him.
Yeah, stop sharing perk stuff. I don't need to read Perk's comments. I'm not following him for a reason.
Yeah, carry on, everybody.
Carry on
from the perk stuff. Yeah, I need to see more people dunking on Seth Partnow about his Daniel Gafford takes.
That's more fun because, you know, I think of Seth as a smart guy and he's more likely to engage with whatever the criticism is going to be. I've clicked on some of his tweets before, and he's going back and forth with people. That's the stuff I find interesting. Same with this is another, man, I'm just going off right now, Andrew. There's been some calls this week from people who are using the Zion situation to say abolish the draft. And
give me I hate this so much. Yeah, go ahead.
And Twitter is so toxic. Anthony Irwin, who is the LA Lakers guy, I think he tweeted out like, hey, for people who are small markets, thinking about the abolish the draft idea, who is the best free agent that your team has ever acquired? And so people are saying, like for the Thunder, we might say Anthony Morrow or Nerlens Noel or whatever.
Yeah.
And his point was just like, like these are the caliber of players these small markets have gotten over time.
Yeah.
Like whether you agree with it or not, like it's a fine thing to throw out there. You go to the quote retweets, and there's people who are like, players are not commodities to be traded. And they go to this whole like basically every take is so extreme that we can't even have, because I'm willing to have the conversation about abolish the draft.
Sure.
But the way it takes place on Twitter is the people who are pro abolish the draft, and this happens in politics as well, you just tweet whatever you believe. You don't respond to any of the valid criticisms against, and everyone who agrees with you likes your tweet, retweets it, and then the other side does the exact same thing. I would love, like Nekias Duncan tweeted out that he's in favor of abolishing the draft. I would love a conversation with Nekias Duncan and someone on the other side actually working it through, because the experience of these arguments on Twitter is so worthless. It's so worthless, and I can't stand it. I probably should just get off Twitter, but I feel like I have to stay on.
I know. I just try not to. If it's something that I just don't agree with completely, I just try to stay away from it, honestly.
That's what I'm trying to do now. Now, hot take, Andrew, if they did abolish the draft, I actually don't think it would be terrible for OKC. What do you think about that?
I think you're absolutely wrong.
I'm not saying it generally it would be bad, but I think you'd be surprised, because I do think in that scenario, not every good young player can go to the exact same teams. There'd still be a salary cap in that scenario.
You're trying to say we'd have Evan Mobley right now because of that one commercial where he had the OKC hat.
That's a great one. I hadn't even thought about that, but yes, didn't Shea pay for his Chipotle?
I don't know. Not sure.
I just think that the idea of abolishing the draft would have the same unintended consequences that everything else the NBA does to try to fix this issue would have. And I think what would happen is you would have a bunch of these super teams initially, and then they'd all hate each other and ask for trades elsewhere over time.
Yeah, I think it's a horrible idea. If you want to really kill the small markets, this is how you do it.
Okay, what about instead of abolishing the draft, you guarantee you give draft picks based on population size of cities every year. So I think New Orleans would get the first pick every year. What do you think about that? I bet you like that idea, don't you?
I think all these ideas are just leading to the Kings just not being a team anymore.
I still like the wheel idea and variations of the wheel idea.
Gosh. It's just what is like absolutely horrifically wrong with what we're doing now? Question.
That they changed the odds. I would go back to the old odds.
I would do it. Yes. Besides that, what is so bad? Because the thing about it, like the NBA won't change it because people tune in for the draft. People get excited about it.
Oh yeah.
Whereas, if it were just like a free agency thing, like it's harder to monetize that.
No, I mean the argument against it is like the labor argument that these guys are.
I know that. I know.
Yeah, that whole argument.
I get it, but it's just like sorry, like this whole newsflash. This whole thing is not about humanity. It's about money.
It is about money.
And the draft makes the NBA and ESPN and everybody else a ton of money. There are jobs that exist only because of the draft. Sam Vecini has a job where all he does is write and cover the draft and talk about the draft. That's his whole job because it brings in money to the Athletic. Okay, if it were just a free agency, it's like, well, let's just make this about the people. You know, I'm sorry, it's not about that. Well, it never has been and it never will be.
Well, what's funny is like the whole abolish the draft thing is based on this idea of like player first, like players should be able to choose where they want to go. And the same people tend to be the ones who don't like all the focus on non-basketball things. Like they don't like how everything is about trades and free agency, which if you abolish the draft, that's all it would be.
Smokes. It would be only that.
Imagine like the lead up to like signing day or whatever. Like it would be, that's all the NBA would be at that point.
Yazoo.
That's all you would care about. I mean, imagine like a site like rivals.com, but for just NBA. Like these guys are coming out of high school, or, you know, if it's still like you have to play a year or whatever in college, like that would be all we talk about.
It could be
It
like
would be insane.
Booker want to go sign with the Lakers, you know,
Yeah.
for minimum deals because they want to win a championship. Like, well, son of a, you know, like then we just have like the Alabamas of the world,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
where it's just
Which-
like everybody signs there.
Which like you could kind of argue like that's actually more in line with the history of the NBA, because like this league was built on dynasties where the Celtics had like five Hall of Famers or whatever it was on their team at one time. But yeah, I don't. My point is, this is a conversation for a podcast between two smart people, and I would love to hear it.
Yeah,
on opposite sides.
I would too.
All you hear is the one side, and they're able to make arguments that make sense within that bubble. And I just want to see them communicate with each other. That's all, Andrew.
I love the draft.
Now, what boss in Elden Ring are you most excited to experience, Andrew?
Sean Schreier just tweeted New York has a plan to phase out the vaccine mandate in the coming weeks.
Good. That's great. So Kyrie's going to get to play. We can stop talking about it, and we'll just get to see what the Nets look like.
Right.
We can stop doing the joke that everyone does, like, well, should the Nets try to target the 10th seed?
Well, they're
We can
doing
stop
it on accident.
doing that already. We can stop doing that, dude. If that happens, that'll be like the final piece to the perfect playoffs.
It will be,
especially in the East.
Right.
West, I'm less interested in. I'll still watch them, but the East is going to be incredible.
So fun. Can't wait.
Oh my gosh.
Whew. All right. Thanks so much for listening to the pod. We will have a Friday pod coming at you. Thunder play again tomorrow night. I assume they won't cancel because of weather. That's happened like maybe once in my lifetime, I feel like, where they've canceled due to weather. But
what's going on there? What's going on in OKC? Let the people overseas know.
Tons of sleet and snow, and it's just going to be freezing cold for the next like 48 hours. So
nice.
I don't know if the Suns are here, if they got here yet, if they're going to get here tomorrow. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But all right. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you guys again on Friday.